What's up, man?
I like finally have a tripod and
Dude, no
hold on.
worries at all. It's
Maybe I
way
could rip.
better when you're just holding it, and it's more personal and intimate. So I like it.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's get intimate.
What's up, dude?
Hey
Happy
guys,
Friday.
happy Friday to you.
I'm David, by the way. I know we've never met, but I'm a huge fan. So.
Yeah, good to meet you, man.
You too.
We got a couple formulation wizards interacting.
I don't know
so
about
like
that. I know you're on
I
another level, but.
I was just telling my team I have a weak spot for people calling me a formulation wizard.
All right, we'll hold on the compliments on that.
Yeah,
Side.
fair enough.
All right, man. We're gonna wait a couple minutes, but we got a nice showing already. We got people joining. Where are you calling in from?
This is my house. Believe it or not, I'm lucky enough to live on a 5-acre plot of forest in Northern California, so there are worse places to shelter in place. But yeah, it's kind of where I come. It's just historically I do so much traveling. I'm on a plane so much in kind of cities that it's just nice to have a spot to come decompress and refocus on what's
You have a
important.
lab there as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have a jerry rig lab in my house right now.
You're better than that.
Yeah, I mean, my poor girlfriend.
Do you grow your own marshmallow root out there?
Exactly, in little pots.
Amazing. Well, dude, we've got some Olipop here. What should
This
we
is all
indulge?
air one now with 6 total cans. You got to get them more.
Yeah, I'll ship you guys out some.
What do you recommend we sip on while we're having our chat?
Bro, that's impossible. I mean, if you need a little caffeine and a little nootropic, you could do the cola.
I got the vintage cola.
Or
Yeah.
sweet crushed root beer at 11 in the morning.
Also a strong choice.
I'm gonna go vintage cola. Cheers, brother. All right, man. We're gonna kick off. Ben, thanks for making the time. Cheers, buddy.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Well, first and foremost, we're huge fans of yours. Congrats on all the amazing momentum with Olipop. Just to say it, this is an exciting episode too. Stick with your dreams. Everyone who's watching, we got Ben Goodwin, who's one of the co-founders of Olipop, one of the honestly most impressive and exciting beverages I've seen on the market. And it also, I mean, I've never had the vintage cola before. It literally tastes a lot like one of our other favorite Coca Cola friends. But dude, this is amazing. Congrats.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Let's start it off pretty casually. I just want to, both of us want to hear a little bit about, I mean, how do you even begin? Dude, you're pretty deep. It seems like almost a decade you've been building this. Let's hear a little bit about you and how this even began.
Yeah, I mean, well, the universe started 13.8 billion years ago, and then no, I mean, when I grew up, I ate a standard American diet. I was a pretty actually overweight little kid, and then I had this really young realization at 14 that wasn't going to translate into a good life, which is a pretty young age to have that, but nonetheless it happened. And so I started getting really into nutrition and diet and exercise and yada yada. Lost a bunch of weight, but what was really interesting is actually the more I kind of got deep in nutrition, that it didn't just affect my physical health, it really affected my psychological, my emotional health. And I became really fascinated by this concept that what we're putting into our bodies affects a lot more than just how we look. It actually really affects how we feel on a kind of a deeper level. And so that's where the kind of deeper passion to work in this field came from. And then when I was around 20, I helped get a kombucha company off the ground, and that's where I learned about the microbiome.
Kombucha Botanica, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Can I ask, were you guys kicking off right when GT's was like? Where was GT's at that point when you were starting?
They were at least like 5 years in. I mean, you can't deny that guy built the category, which is I remember I used to drink those things and they would just like explode like every single time I opened them. It was pretty funny.
Yep.
But yeah, and I was like doing operations and product work, and but I as per all, I just love to learn about the mechanics behind how things work, and especially on the health side, there's the brain gut axis, which is a really interesting part of our physiology, which is basically this idea that the microbiome ferments essentially different compounds that affect us in all these different ways. So the majority of your neurotransmitters for your brain, which affect how you think and how you feel, are actually produced in your microbiome or by your microbiome, and they get shipped up to your brain. So like you make like 80% of your serotonin in your large intestines, for example. And you actually produce the majority of your hormones also. So there's this thing that's like technically not even human that produces all these compounds that are foundational to how you feel and how you think and how your body expresses itself over time. It's pretty fascinating. So that kind of was like,
I love, it's really a health product. I don't think people realize, and when we were on your site, you went into extreme detail on the various ingredients that are typically in this product. And I frankly, I think we were both blown away. I mean, this is a modern medicine. You know, you have, and you have marshmallow roots.
You have Nopales. Like, how did you pick Nopales?
Yeah, Nopales is interesting. It's got polysaccharides in it that have a known kind of prebiotic function. It also has, this is a particularly sexy soundbite, but it has plant mucoescence in it. So, you know, the goal, you know, we obviously can't make any disease claims, but kind of the goal with Olipop is to promote kind of a healthy inflammatory response in the GI tract, and to also provide a lot of good food for your existing microbiome. You know, the issue is that most Americans get, according to the FDA, get 10 to 15 grams of fiber per day. And there's different studies that have been done on hunter-gatherers, which is kind of the indigenous diet that humans have eaten for 2 million years before the industrial and agricultural revolutions. And those groups get 100 to 200 grams of fiber a day. So we're getting like 5 to 10% of what we're supposed to get in terms of fiber. Same stat goes basically for prebiotics, which are fibers that feed your beneficial bacteria in your gut, and also nutritional diversity. So we get about 5 to 10% of the nutritional diversity that these groups get. And when they've done research on these tribes, their microbiomes are super, super robust. The basic idea is that what is in this kind of hunter-gatherer diet that's really meant from the kind of modern diet are these 3 buckets of fiber, prebiotics, and nutritional diversity. And so all of the different ingredients that we selected for Olipop are driven to try to help provide those. And then obviously it was a conscious choice to put them in like a soda format. So the idea being that if anything is important enough to kind of be accessible to a broad spectrum of consumers, put it in a vehicle that's really accessible. So obviously soda is kind of the problem child of the beverage industry. I mean, it's got 40 to 60 grams of sugar, artificial flavors, artificial colors. It's, you know, the kind of issues around soda are well known. So if you can put something as healthy as fiber, which is kind of like the anti-sugar, into a package that is typically associated with being high sugar, and then make that broadable, you kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone, as in you get out healthy ingredients that people need, and you also offer an alternative to soda, which is a pretty problematic beverage.
So can we talk about the spectrum? On one end of the spectrum, you have traditional soft drinks, Coca Cola, Pepsi, you name it, those types of RTDs. On the other side, you have kombucha. And I guess what I'd ask is, where, as a prebiotic soda, where does, basically, where does Olipop live with regards to that spectrum? And let's talk about kombucha, because I feel like a lot of people have a tough time understanding the difference between a kombucha versus really a prebiotic soda like Olipop.
Yeah, so, I mean, well, we kind of covered off some of the aspects of soda, so we kind of know where that sits. I mean, it's high fructose corn syrup in a no-fiber environment, which is probably arguably one of the worst things you could consume outside of, I mean, it's basically alcohol and liquid fructose with no fiber. I personally feel like they're not that far away from each other in terms of their impact on the body. I mean, your brain doesn't really recognize that you consumed fructose when you consume it, so it doesn't kick off a satiety response. So you're smashing all these calories, and your brain's not even recognizing it. It generates a lot of inflammatory markers in the liver and in the body, and obviously it spikes blood sugar, which is insulin issues. And yeah, I mean the list is endless. And by the way, it's a $65 to $70 billion category with 90% household penetration, so it's ubiquitous. So that's where soda sits. You know, and then kombucha is an interesting one. Obviously, I helped start up a kombucha company when I was 14 years ago. There's only been one trial that's basically ever been done in a randomized, placebo-controlled way with humans on kombucha, and it came back pretty inconclusive. And then there are other clinical trials that found that if you make kombucha wrong, you can have hepatotoxins in it, and obviously there's, in theory, alcohol. So, you know, and the other item is that kombucha is kind of thought of as being a probiotic, but probiotics have like a legal definition, and most kombuchas need to ferment in things like bacteria that are legally probiotics, because probiotics don't actually naturally occur according to the legal definition inside a kombucha. So I think it's possible the kombucha has some benefit, but it hasn't really been scientifically validated. And it's also possible that made incorrectly it could actually be quite harmful. So it's kind of, kombucha is a bit of a nebulous dynamic in terms of its actual efficacy. Like I said, I drink it from time to time. Don't want to knock it. I think, some of the organic acids inside of it and stuff could be great, but
I think sugar can be a pretty big problem in kombucha from what I've experienced, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's another factor, right? Because there's still no fiber in kombucha, and some of the kombuchas are up at, 20 grams a bottle, which is still quite a bit. I mean, it's obviously half of a soda, but it's still half of a soda. So, I let people make their own kind of decisions around what they think is right for them to consume, but I've definitely limited my kombucha consumption to kind of when I'm craving it specifically. I think there's a lot of different ways to get the different, value the kombucha provides into your body. So, and then for Olipop, our goal is, when I started working on this in 2017, I went and looked at all the clinical literature about, okay, what's actually, what are some of the sea changes in microbiome research? Because that's something I follow quite a bit. And there's really quite a shift away from probiotics towards dietary intervention kind of as a methodology for helping the microbiome. And so, European Food Safety Authority, which is kind of like Europe's FDA, has rejected about 350 probiotic claims over the last 5 years. EU is, broadly speaking, cracking down on probiotics. We believe that probiotics would help people recover after antibiotic usage. But the Wasserman Institute just did a giant meta-analysis and found that actually probiotics elongate the recovery time from antibiotic use more often than not. That's not very good. And then we thought that probiotics would actually graft to the microbiome and stick around, and that would be part of their benefit. And unfortunately, we find that doesn't really happen. For the probiotics to actually make it to where they need to go, which is rare enough by itself, they usually get excreted within 24 to 72 hours. So it's not really it can be beneficial, but there's not a lot of data that shows that it's beneficial for people who already have adequately healthy digestive systems. And so it's kind of, which is sucked for me because I spent like 10 years working in ferments and probiotics, because that seems like that was what the science supported, and now it's shifting away. And,
isn't that so interesting? I mean, look, one thing I just want to reiterate is 10 years is how much time and effort you've been putting in to be even where you are today. And I think so many people oftentimes rarely respect and appreciate. You see these really exciting CPG brands and people really get very passionate about these brands and become brand loyal, but it's taken 10 years to get to this point. And I just like to hammer that home, because I don't think people fully appreciate that, as well as the fact that, there's a ton of science in what you're doing and an academic approach with guys like, Dr. Joseph Petrosino. It sounds like you spent a lot of time with him developing academic research and studies that clinically support your product. And so can you touch on that relationship on the academia side and how that's really played a part?
Yeah, I mean, it's been difficult. It's most really serious academic researchers wouldn't touch, industry with a 10-foot pole, because there's a lot of distrust. A lot of academics rightfully have the concern that, companies coming in kind of just want to use their name and snatch up the credibility, but they don't really care about the science. They're just going for the market angle. And I think a lot of times that's true. So, I've been working for over 2 years, since we started working on this, traveling around the country, meeting with different academic institutions, developing relationships with different researchers who kind of got what we were doing. And we're lucky now to be working with some really phenomenal people. We're working with Stephen Lindeman at Purdue and the Complex Carbohydrates Division. We're working with Joseph Petrosino and one of his main researchers at Baylor College of Medicine. We're working with another really phenomenal gastroenterologist out of Scotland. So, but it's time to build those relationships. So, to be really clear, we haven't done our own independent research on Olipop. Ironically, we were about to kick off research with both Purdue and Baylor, and then COVID hit and all the labs shut down. That being said, yeah, I know it sucks. But that being said, there is specific research that's been done on not only the overall nutritional strategy we're taking with high prebiotics and high fiber, but then some of the ingredients we're using themselves have actually been rigorously studied in humans, and we're using them at ratios that actually confer benefits. So, yeah, I mean, it's just, it's really important to us. And then, I've set up a whole pipeline now where, like we're obviously using established nutritional studies around fiber and prebiotics, which is really exciting. And but I'm not even satisfied with that. I think there's a lot of open space in this category that we're trying to build with new and novel prebiotics and fibers that aren't even widely available. And what we've been working to do is actually set up a really great group of innovation companies and academic researchers to actually identify new prebiotics and fibers, characterize them, and then run them through our own clinical testing system. And then once they're validated, actually include them in Olipop and different iterations of kind of the OliSmart formula as time goes on. So this product now, like the taste and the branding and stuff, that's going to stay consistent because consumers, love that piece. But actually the functional aspects are going to continue to evolve and get more and more effective over time, which I'm pretty excited about. And to your point, it's not a short process, man. It's actually 14 years,
14 years
companies. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's the 14-year overnight success.
Obviously, with those 14 years, what's the daily motivation that just keeps you going?
Dude, that is a great question. I will be honest. I think too many brands and sometimes founders and certainly different members of the CPG community are really, like, in my opinion, too overly motivated by the paycheck. I think, and I don't think you can kind of keep up this level of diligence and focus over a long period of time if that's your core motivator, especially when stuff gets like tricky, like things with COVID are really shaking things up and if impacting people's psychology. So to be honest, like, I'm a bit of an existentialist, and I'm just trying to do something useful with my life. And I'm trying to impact society in a positive way on the largest scale possible. And that's what gets me out of bed every morning. That's what gets my co-founder, David Lester, out of bed every morning. And that's what really we anchor our team around is we all want the commercial success and yada, yada, yada. But it's like we also recognize that we're providing a useful, or, our goal is to be providing useful service to society at large. If we can take a big bite out of soda and then also deliver, useful missing nutrients to a large segment of the population, then like we're doing good work. And that's
90% household penetration, drinking better and having better daily consumption habits. Sounds like a pretty damn good goal, if you ask me.
Yeah, exactly. That would be
It's funny because you've nailed so many really important points that I just want to cover. I feel like, look, David and I have only been at this for about 4 years now, and we love what we do and we're incredibly passionate. But we feel like the brands that really end up sustaining how challenging and difficult this business is have broader values or missions. Or, for us, it's really, we looked at a category like ice cream and saw a very similar issue. A lot of high fructose corn syrup, tons of sugar, a lot of products just don't care about investing in the nutritional benefits associated with, specifically indulgence and permissible indulgence. And that's kind of where our head's at. To segue, can we talk a little bit about how Olipop was founded? Like Kombucha Botanica, Obi Soda, Olipop. I want to be cognizant of time, but just
part if you could dive into it. I know once you were, from what I obviously would love to hear from your end. Once obviously Obi was ending and you were cleaning out the lab, there was one last formulation you found.
Yeah. I mean, so that was for Obi. I mean, that was harrowing, man. It's just like talking about entrepreneurialism. I mean, so I have like 3 income streams. This is when I was founding Obi and working on the formula. So this was like
real quick. What was Obi? Just very quickly.
Obi was a sparkling water keeper soda. So it's a sparkling probiotic soda. So it still exists. They have moved on from the formula that I developed, both in terms of the flavor and the water keeper, which is like a little bit, it is what it is. But at the time, it was something that I spent a lot of time on. I spent actually 3.5 years formulating it. So, I'm working like basically 3 jobs. I have 3 income flows. I'm bi-coastal back and forth between East New York and California. And then I hired a microbiologist to fly out to California. We built a lab from scratch to like start doing different fermentation experiments. And it was like pretty punk science. It was like we were using like sterilized Ziploc bags that we then run an electrostatic gun over to create
Breaking Bad.
Basically.
Soda.
It was just crazy shit. And you'd walk into the lab and we'd have like all the stuff pinboarded to the walls as like an alien cave. I mean, it was like really serious. But we did a couple hundred experiments trying to mutate this culture bank and figuring out how to scale it. and we were failing. It took like, we did that first, the first phase was about 3, 4, 5 months, something in that time period. I'm like 50K in at least at this point, and my own cash, and we thought we were kind of screwed, and we were breaking down the lab thinking that we had failed, and there's this experiment in the corner that I hadn't tried yet, and I tasted it, and I was like, Jim, what is this? This tastes perfect, and that ended up being the formula. That's actually how
for Olipop.
No, that was for Obi. That was for Obi.
Okay, for
yeah.
Obi. Yeah.
Olipop has its own, formulation challenges. You've got to find a way to stabilize and solubilize fiber and get it to kind of play well with all the rest of the ingredients. And, it had its own tricky challenges, but it was not quite the same level of insanity. I mean, getting microorganisms to behave properly is really challenging.
Yeah, and not have the cans exploding. I mean, you have to be pretty thoughtful.
Yeah.
And how did David come into the picture? How did you end up choosing David, and how did he?
Yeah, I know you went through multiple different partners over those first few years.
Yeah, so I can be a little bit of an obnoxious level grade perfectionist, which is also strange because I can be quite disorganized. So I'm a little bit of a walking contradiction. But there's certain things I know I have to get right, and so those are things I really focus on. And one of those things was choosing a business partner. I did go through a couple different rounds of looking for a business partner. And again, this is all Obi days. David and I worked together on Obi, and now we're still working together. So that was an easy choice. And I'm happy that he decided to come along for this ride as well and co-found this with me. But yeah, I mean, I went through 3 different rounds. I went through a very painful divorce with someone who didn't quite work out, even though they're a good person. So sometimes it's just, you just have to keep, if you really like believe in what you're doing, it starts to get to this line where you're like, am I an insane person, or is this the right thing to be doing? Yeah. And if you really believe in what you're doing, you just gotta keep pushing. And this time it worked. David was working at Diageo, doing spirits marketing. He had taken a sabbatical because he got a little bit burned out on just like, I'm selling other alcohol. I don't really feel like it's giving me the kind of life purpose I'm looking for. He let his boss know that he wasn't going to be coming back, which is a pretty bold move. I mean, he was making good money. And she was like, okay, well, if you're not coming back, this role profile just popped across my desk. And if you want to take a look at it. So I talked to him on the phone. He's actually like a very monotone British man from Liverpool. So I talked to him on the phone. And I was so like, I didn't even think he wanted to. I was like, this guy is not interested. I almost didn't meet with him in person because I was just like, this guy is not interested in working with me. And then I met him in person. And I was like, oh, okay, actually you are interested. And 2 weeks later we shook hands. And it's like you need a strong when you have a partner, you need someone who gets shit done, who really stays focused on what's important, who's got some grit and some resilience, and is a good compliment to you. And David's a really good compliment to me. So. We've learned a lot from each other over time, and so we probably take on more of each other's characteristics now than we did historically. But he's really strong with certain aspects of administration and finance and marketing and certain thought processes that don't come very naturally to me. And I have a lot of this kind of wild, insane, entrepreneurial, paranoid, non-linear thinking that can be quite useful to him. So we make a good team, and we've really gotten a great synergy down. And at this point, like, I trust him with my life. Like, we've been through some serious shit together. So the bond between us is really quite strong.
So, and that's awesome, man. I love it. I think that complementary skill set is really, obviously, speaks for itself.
Yeah.
So Obi was ending. You were beginning Olipop together. You guys decided to embark. Walk us through, like, pretty high level, like how Olipop launched and where you guys are trending and heading right now.
Yeah, so I mean, we launched pretty humbly, actually. Just basically, it's the classic. All startup is a catch-22. It's like you have to get the distributors to get the accounts, but then you have to get the accounts to get the distributors. You got to get the money to get the team, but you have to have the team to have the money. It's yada yada.
It literally is.
It's all the same shit.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, exactly. So, we launched in Northern California in October of 2018. I've been working on the formula for a while at that point, and working through the branding. That was a whole process by itself. We had one brand design, and we then, like, at the point where we're about to print a bunch of cans, we're like, this isn't right. We had to, like, scrap it, set our money on fire, and redo it.
And for lack of a better word, is that a gut decision?
I had been honestly ringing the bell on it for a month or two at that point, but I think it's just like when we saw it on the can, we're just like, yeah, this is not going to translate correctly. So yeah, it was kind of a gut decision, but there's a good amount of analysis that went into it also. I mean, I really believe in like nonlinear thinking. So you use like multiple data points in your cognitive physiological process to make decisions and weigh them against each other, and I think that's a really useful mechanic for decision making. But yeah, so we set that on fire, we got it launched, and we're really, it's obviously by design at the same time, to create a product that's successful. That's our goal. But I've been really blown away by the consumer response. I mean, it's just like, and there's another thing as well that's been interesting, which is kind of, we're always a little bit nervous to see how far we can actually stretch the brand. Like, can we truly go after this kind of soda category, the soda occasion? And consumers are ready for it. They kind of, I think maybe 5-10 years ago, they wouldn't have gotten it, but it really does appear that consumers are understanding that like you can make a healthy, delicious soda that's low calorie. But I think the thing is like it's got to actually be really delicious, right? It's got to actually speak correctly to consumers. We've just been really lucky that we've had that traction. So yeah, I mean, we're launching into probably 3,000-4,000 new accounts this year on a retail basis. Yeah, our e-com's gone up about 600% in the last 3-4 months, and we're on track to hopefully grow by about 7x this year. So the scaling process has definitely happened. We've hired a new leadership team, which have been just like really, really phenomenal group of individuals who have kind of like helped to structure a lot of David and I's work and take some work off our plate so that we can really expand. We've gotten much more vigorous about our hiring process, and that's really been extremely useful. And really just working on building a really strong culture, which pays off more dividends than you can imagine.
And obviously with the current phase with COVID and everything, what's been the biggest challenge, would you say, or something you didn't expect that has happened with you personally or with the team?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, and I understand it's not rosy for a lot of folks right now, and want to like be pretty like sensitive to that. But I've been really the biggest surprise is actually, I mean, you could see that everybody on the team, like everybody in the country, was they were feeling the challenge. I mean, it wasn't, people were stressed. It wasn't they might have been expressing it one way or another, but you can kind of read the team. We have weekly meetings where we get everybody together on Zoom and talk, and I've been just really, really impressed by how they've really rallied. I think what's really important in this phase that we're in right now, if you do have a team that's working with you, they need like an archetypal narrative that gives them a lot of motivation. And if you have a mission-driven company, which obviously we do, you guys do, you're doing important work. You're doing heroes work, and it's, like psychology is outcome, right? So if everyone's you need to be aware of the pitfalls, you need to be aware of the negative things and the negative outcomes, but at the same time, you need to, if you want to keep up that driving momentum, you have to stay focused on a way to frame what's going on and your place in it so that you still feel empowered, you still feel like you're taking action, you still feel like it gives you purpose, and that focus will kind of continue to help you to do positive things. And it's a I've really learned about this. Actually, one of the things I've learned a lot about from David, my business partner, is like the power of self-fulfilling prophecies. Like both positive or negative. How you set up your mindset really ends up translating out to what you do every day, and all those little choices or big choices end up contributing to success or failure. So
we're pretty big believers in the power of manifestation over here. Our tagline is anything is popsicle, so we live by it every single day.
I love that. Yeah, it's phenomenal. So I would say that like the challenge has obviously been there have been some distribution issues, there have been some retailer issues. I mean, you can imagine like shelves were wiped out, people were focusing on essentials. Distributors didn't know what hit them. Communication became harder. Some resets are still going forward. Some retailer resets are being pushed back. It's what you'd kind of expect. But again, we've been executing kind of as diligently as we can, and we're lucky that we have a really, repeat, consumer, a really loyal customer base. And again, we're offering something that has a health component to it, and is also is a comfort item. I mean, it's like you snap open a cola or a root beer, it's like, oh great, I can have something that makes me feel good. And people need both those things right now. They need some emotional comfort, some emotional stability, and they need some health. And we've been lucky that we offer both those things. So yeah, there's been the kind of normal set of issues, some of which required us to like refocus on e-com quite a bit, and that's been going really well. But what the most surprising thing has been just kind of managing the psychology of it and how the team has responded.
And when you're leading the team with David, you mentioned it earlier, kind of your mission and values, but is there one guiding principle or a set of principles that you really like the entire team kind of embraces?
Yeah, one thing I've been thinking about quite well, we have a set of core values that we stick to, and that are really important for us as a company. Ironically, I've been thinking of like a new one lately, which is really
Dude,
like
evolution. It's great.
Yeah. Well, I'm like, how do I simplify it? And how do I make concepts that are kind of like self-reinforcing in a positive way? So what I kind of been thinking about lately is a 2-step plan. Pretty straightforward. So step number 1 is work on your own shit to make this a better place for everyone. And step number 2 is when you inevitably make a mistake, admit to it, ask for help if you need it, and refocus on step 1.
A lot of people are afraid of making mistakes.
Yeah.
Especially right now, like there's a lot of unknown. Like people are freaking out left and right. Obviously, customers want the product, and you're trying to get it to them as soon as possible. And there's going to be times when you're wrong. So for people who are listening, what's kind of like the biggest piece of advice you would say for if you do make a mistake in this day and age?
And by the way, it doesn't have to just be COVID. Maybe just advice to founders on, you mentioned ownership and owning your shit. I mean, it's 2 separate forms, owning your mistakes and owning your role.
Your personal development. It's personal development. I mean, I would say the biggest aspects, I mean, if you look, this is actually like, there's like you can stand up on a podium and talk about that for like 16 hours if you wanted to. But I would say it's like, humility is really an important tool because it doesn't just keep you from getting arrogant. It also keeps you from actually falling into to wallowing, right? Having humility keeps you the right size, right? It keeps you where you need to be. And I think if obviously you want to minimize mistakes, but then mistakes are also your most valuable tools for learning. It's like the pain of a mistake plus the reflection on that mistake gives you kind of the most motivation to kind of change things and adapt. And so, yeah, you should be trying to minimize them, but you should also recognize their inevitability. And like I said, it's like everything is connected in terms of how you integrate with your business. So, if you have a massive ego and it's capable of being kneecapped really easily, like that's going to end up being a weak point. If you kind of can't keep yourself focused on the right stuff. So I think it's just like mistakes are inevitable. Keep yourself humble. Recognize that being humble is a buffer in both directions of psychology, and use mistakes as growing opportunities. And I think that's fine. And just recognizing that like personal development is intrinsic to, I always think of it kind of as like, this is one of the reasons I got into entrepreneurialism in the first place, is it forces continued adaptation and forces continued neuroplasticity and thinking in new ways and getting your ass handed to you. I've gotten my ass handed to me like plenty of times in being an entrepreneur, because it's
perpetuated
intrinsic
torture, but you have to enjoy the torture.
Yeah. Well, you have to learn how to do things like manage your stress response if something happened, but then how are you responding to the fact that something happened? Or, these are all great opportunities to learn about yourself. Like, I had a psychology presentation I kind of gave to the team a couple months ago where I'm like, this is your limbic system. This is your neocortex. This is your sympathetic nervous response. This is your parasympathetic nervous response. When you get triggered, you go into your limbic system and then you don't make a decision. So you have to like work with yourself. These all become like really, really useful tools, and just like recognizing your own humanness and then using all those different experiences, positive and negative, to continue to make yourself better. And I think that's at the core of being an entrepreneur, really, if you're doing it in the right way. It's like it's a path. I really believe in that kind of like that Japanese philosophy that you kind of move. It's going to sound so pretentious, so
dude,
apologies in advance. No, but you move.
Raw.
you move towards enlightenment through total mastery and union with your craft, right? That's like a deep Japanese kind of like, yeah, it's a deep Zen philosophy. The idea being that like you're merging with something greater, and in doing so, you feel like oneness and yada yada, which is again, it's like super pretentious for like some guy who makes sodas. But I do think about kind of mastery of craft, and I do think about service to things that are larger than myself, and kind of how all those things end up, making me a better person. So it helps you kind of like
when you become a master of your craft. By the way, we share the same outlook. We started with a popsicle, an ice cream bar, and when you are a master of your craft and you create and you try and aspire towards really developing the greatest product and experience for your core customer, that translates into broader visions and what you really end up manifesting. So, dude, I look, yes, on the surface, people can easily box it into a soda, but you guys are really attacking gut health, the net impact of the world, specifically American consumers for now. And I think it's really powerful, man. So I don't think it's pretentious at all.
Yeah. Cheers. I do my best. I try to give my team some of the information, but not flood them in all my philosophical stuff, because I do spend a lot of time with my brain there. But yeah, I think again it's a journey, and you are going to make mistakes. It is inevitable. Hopefully they're not fatal. Some of them might be. I'm not satisfied with all the outcomes from all my businesses. I'm not satisfied with all my decisions, but then that gives me the motivation to learn from those things and to come back at it 2, 3, 10 times as strong. And that's just part of the vision of life. You're going to find out how committed you really are.
So can we, I think this is a perfect note to end on. You said 14-year journey to get you here. What happens in the next 14 years with Olipop? Yes, just like what happens in the next phase, and what do you hope to accomplish, and what can we share with everyone who's watching with where Olipop is headed?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we'll see how it plays out with Olipop. I mean, our goal, the next step really is like grow, like become a national brand. I mean, we are a national brand, but become like a saturated brand that, has that high level of consumer engagement. I guess become a household name is the other way to describe it. Continue to make the formula better. Continue to make it more efficacious. Most beverage businesses sell. Most beverages businesses get acquired. This is the nature of the beast. You either go public, or at some point you get acquired. And it's not illogical to think that would happen at some point with Olipop. So what I'm doing on the formula side is trying to build something that's so foolproof, that's so scalable and so efficacious that in the event that we do at some point are acquired, that it's still going to provide value to people's digestive health and other systems for years and years to come. Like, have it be baked into the DNA of the product so much so that it's, no matter who's managing it day to day, it's still going to provide that benefit. So that's really important to us. And then, Olipop is my 100% main focus right now. But it's like, I've got lots of other ideas in my head. So kind of as time goes on, we'll see how those play out. I don't want to give too much away, but I definitely have some long-term plans.
Well, Ben, we really want to thank you for your time. Really inspiring. Just sitting with people like yourself, we're aspiring to kind of follow in your footsteps. And thank you for sharing and really giving an intimate look into the founding story. But dude, we're excited to continue watching the brand and supporting you guys. Anyone, go support Olipop. They have really the best soda I've ever had, and it's incredible. Tastes incredible too, which for a health product and a wellness product, really amazing work. So thanks again, man. Have a fantastic weekend.
Thank you so much for having me on. Really appreciate it. Love your product too, which I haven't communicated haven't communicated adequately throughout this process. And thank you so much. Obviously, drinkolipop.com. You can go buy the shit out of our product. And
yes.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Dude, thanks again, buddy. Have a good one.
Yeah, thanks so much.